This is Tom Bain, and this is Wine, Money, and Song. If you find the content of this channel of interest, please subscribe. And if you have like-minded friends who are interested in wine, please tell them about it. And in comments, please let us know what subjects you would like us to cover and if there's wines you want us to react to. Where you buy your wines really matters. What does that mean? Wine is wine, and why is it important? Well, first of all, 35% of all the wines that are purchased in America are sold through supermarkets. Now, I know in certain states, wine is not sold in supermarkets, but a lot of the pending legislation seems to be allowing more wine sales. So 35% is a huge hunk. Then you have 25% are off-premise, which means restaurants, hotels. You go in, you have dinner, a wine waiter comes over, or sommelier goes over and sells you a bottle of wine. So 25% of the wine is sold in restaurants and in hotels. Then that leaves 40% left over to be sold retail. And retail is in stores physically, and you can also digitally buy the wines online. So let me get into supermarkets first. Supermarkets are a convenient one-shop stop for people to go in, buy groceries, and pick up a bottle of wine or two. My experience has been the wines in supermarkets are controlled by 3 or 4 large wineries who own a lot of labels. Gallo owns over 100 different labels, and they pay for shelf space like Coca-Cola and Pepsi does. So what does that mean? That means small wineries cannot get in supermarkets generally. It's owned by those big wineries who own a lot of labels, like Jackson Estates, Kendall Jackson. Have a lot of labels, and they're out there and they dominate the shelves in supermarkets. And supermarkets are in very heavily populated areas, the bigger ones are, where they have the superstores and they have a wine selection, and they aim their shopping mainly at women, because women is the largest customer in a supermarket. And nice labels, positioned correctly for the ladies who are picking up wines. Men, I don't think, buy a lot of wine from supermarkets. And you can see where all the emphasis is advertising, nice labels, neatness. And also, you're not going to have anyone really sell you the wines in a supermarket. Now, I know that Whole Foods has wine in some of their stores, and they're very upscale, and they make a nice presentation, but I'm sure they have wine clubs, and they want people to buy more of the wines, but there's very little one-on-one sales help in supermarkets, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, not present. So it's just for convenience. So the prices of wine in supermarkets are not low unless they have a sale. You aren't going to get a big deal generally in supermarkets unless they're closing something out. So on to digital wine sales, which means wineries sell their wines directly online, and they have wine clubs you can join, and you can join wine clubs also digitally, but big box stores you can buy online also, and they have wine clubs. And the doubling of sales during COVID for wine clubs is amazing. It was something like 14% before COVID, and now it's like 27%, almost doubling. And that's because people are not physically going to wineries. They're physically shopping less. They're cutting from going twice a week to once a week for safety reasons. Now, the question is this, is how much education is going on with the wines digitally. They'll write something up. Clubs will be selling you the wines, and there's very little one-to-one contact with a person and educating you about the wine. So that isn't the way you're really going to learn about wines. Now, the way you're going to learn about wines is going to a local neighborhood store and meeting someone, and I will get into that. One last word about wine clubs. About 10 years ago, wine clubs just sprang up. The New York Times has a wine club. The Wall Street Journal has a wine club. There are hundreds and hundreds of them all over the place. And I found that they are very, very ordinary wines and wines you've never heard of, and what I call zip code wines. They don't really tell you where they're from exactly. Yeah, what country it's from, what area, but not really where it's made. I call those zip code wines. You look at the bottom of the label and there's a zip code, and that's where the company is based. But you can get 6 or 7 wines, and the prices seem to be pretty fair, and you could try many different wines, and in a way that's educational. But they don't give you enough information about it. And if you're new into wines, you can experiment with that, but you're really not going to learn from wine clubs that much and about the differences in wine. So I'm going to go on to the 40% of the wine sales in America that are through stores. And as I said before, a portion of those sales are digital sales. They sell online as well as walking into the facilities. Now, the big 900 gorilla in the room in wine sales is Costco. To be honest, I've been a Costco member for 25 years, and I bought some very nice wines there. I lived in Westlake Village in California, in the Westlake Village area, and that's the store I went to buy my wines at Costco, and they had a really good selection. They had some great Bordeaux's, Grand Cru Burgundies, Grand Marque Champagnes. And the one thing about Costco, their margins are around less than 15% on wine, and the average is somewhere 35 around in most stores. So you can pick up some really good buys, but they also have their Kirkland label, and I'm going to be tasting some of those wines for you in the future. So I don't want to go too deeply, but Costco has 450 outlets. They sell about $2.5 billion worth of wine a year. And that's huge. But you do not get one-on-one help at Costco, leading you by the hand. I know here in Massachusetts, the people who work at the stores really have very little knowledge, and they don't know when things are coming in. So you don't get much help at Costco. You have to read online what they're writing about the wines. The second big mover in retail in America is Total Wines. Total Wines has 230 stores in 27 states, and they've been a moving force. They've been really upping their game and spreading out across America. And they specialize in wines they directly import. And when you walk into these stores, and they're massive, they're like what Home Depot was to the hardware store. You walk into these stores, and I'm a person who's been shopping in wine stores for over 3 decades. And if I'm lost, what's a normal consumer? I can't find anything, even though they have signs all over the place. But what they're trying to do, Total, is to sell you their direct imports, things that they buy directly, so they can skip over the importer, skip over the wholesaler, and in that way they pocket that margin. So they really attack you from all ends about pushing those wines. They do have some very good select wines also. And the pricing there, I guess, is fair. They also sell futures, especially Bordeaux, and they have very good prices.
they have very good prices. And you only put 50% of the cost up initially, and when the wines are delivered, you pay the other 50%. But as far as education, they have wine tasting rooms and things, but basically what they're doing is pushing their wines. They're pushing their wines, and everyone to a degree pushes their own wines. But their direct sales stuff, import stuff, they want to sell those because the margins are much higher. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with your neighborhood store, where I would say that's your best shot in learning more about wines. Hook up with someone there who recommends a couple of wines to you, and then you go back and you tell them how you felt about it, they were good. And people who work in these neighborhood stores, they try a lot of wines. They're really interested in wines. And they have an ongoing program of educating themselves, and they educate their consumers, and that's how they build their business up. And you'll find that same person you should get on a first name basis with, and even get their emails and have them email you when something comes that they think would interest you. And they have tastings in the stores. They have wine dinners a lot of times. They have dignitaries from the wine business come in, and that's where you're going to learn more about wines. And when you go to these tastings and seminars, you're going to meet other people like you who are learning about wine. And you tie in friendships, and after a while, you'll maybe do some tastings with your friends, and you'll talk about wines, and you'll teach each other. Because you're going to have a ring of friends, of wine friends. Les amis de vin, you say that in France, the friends of wine, and you become friends. And if you want to learn about wine, that's how you learn about wine, is circulate where there are other people who are interested and who really want to educate you. So I think I laid it out. So 35% of the wine sales, supermarkets, 25% in restaurants and hotels, and the other 40% in wine stores. And wine stores are your way to really learn and really explore wines. Find someone who's going to be your wine guru and stick with them. And I think that's the way to go.